All right, everybody. Happy Victory Monday. It continues on, and part of the reason why it continues on is not just because the Seahawks are 3 and 0. We know that, and that's obviously the main reason why we're pretty happy today, but it's more than that, right? 3 and 0 is great, but 3 and 0 would mean a lot less if we were in a division where maybe we had another 3 and 0 team and then the other two teams were 2 and 1 or something like that, right? If we were in a division where everybody was good, the impact of being good would be less significant. And we've been there before, right? During the Pete Carroll era, there were many years where the top of the division was so competitive that it just didn't feel like you could ever build separation. There were seasons where winning 11 games or 12 games wasn't enough to win the division. This was on a 16-game schedule, by the way. So you take a look at what's going on in the NFC West so far this year, it means a little bit more. Obviously, there's a ton of football left to be played, but we are 3 and 0. The other three teams in the NFC West are 1 and 2. We have a 2-game lead over every other team in the division. And that makes it all the better. So, in this video, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the division so far because yesterday was obviously very interesting. Very interesting what happened yesterday with the Niners blowing that game to the Rams. The Cardinals did ultimately end up losing to the Lions, which was good. That game was actually a little bit dicey at one point. There was definitely some reason for concern there, but it fell the way we wanted it to fall ultimately. And now we're sitting here looking down at these three teams, just trying to figure out where this is going to go. So, um, I'll lead with the Rams. I know that yesterday they showed a lot of heart, they showed a lot of grit, and they showed a lot of positive traits. I firmly believe that team is ultimately going to be toast. Maybe it won't happen immediately the way it looked like it would, but I don't think it's possible for a team to survive that many injuries in the long haul. They can win a game, and if you're being straight honest with yourself, yesterday's game was pretty fluky. The Niners were up 2 scores for a good chunk of that game. They were up 2 scores late in that game. They missed a field goal that would have ended the game. They had some weird stuff happening on a punt return that decided the game. They had a fake punt. They had a bunch of weird stuff happen in that game to allow that to happen. That's not sustainable, and I don't think it's sustainable having this really weak offensive line out there protecting an older quarterback like Stafford while most of your defense is injured. So the Rams are out. We'll see what happens, of course. If it doesn't go that way, then so be it. But I believe that the Rams are ultimately going to fall by the wayside just because of all these injuries, and they've lost too much. So I think the Rams are ultimately going to be pushed to the side. If it doesn't happen right now, it'll happen a little bit later. Cardinals, I mean, I'm still kind of in preseason mode with them, right? Before the season started, I didn't think the Cardinals were going to be any good this year. And we're looking at a team that has clearly played better than expected. They have a positive point differential, big time, plus 18. They won a dominating game over a division rival they have typically lost to. And they played competitively in 2 games so far this year against supposedly good teams in Buffalo and Detroit. But I obviously went into the season thinking that they would not be much of a player in the NFC, and I don't know. You look at yesterday's game, and the main thing that strikes you is Kyler kind of came back to earth, right? That was not a very good game for Kyler. They needed him to show up. If he shows up, they probably win because their defense played well enough to win that game. Their defense actually did a good job holding Detroit's offense back, although that might say more about Detroit's offense than anything else. But Arizona's um, offense had an opportunity to prove themselves legitimate yesterday, I think, and they didn't have it. So I'm looking at that Arizona team overall, and I still don't think they have enough talent on that defense. I think that right now things look a little inflated because they played the Rams at the perfect time when the Rams were so beat up there was nothing they could do, and Arizona was able to fully capitalize on that. And I think that's kind of inflated things a little bit right now. So as far as the Cardinals go, they are a very impressive 1-2. I will admit that. And they might be a little bit better than I thought. And they are doing some things that I think are commendable and some things that I think are pushing them down the right path. But I still look at that defense and I just think to myself, there's not enough talent on this side of the ball. And while Kyler is capable of having really, really good games, and he's had a couple already this year, at the end of the day, he's not that great of a quarterback. And that was even before the injury. So I don't think anything has radically changed there. So ultimately, I do think that Arizona will fall by the wayside here. Maybe they'll be average this year. I don't think they're a contender. Maybe they'll be in the wild card hunt with a few games left in the season. I can't see much more than that yet. I think they got to add some blue chippers to that defense before I really feel like they can do something. And then you have the Niners, who nominally right now sit at the very bottom of the division. They are fourth place because they lost a divisional game. And I'll tell you, it's there's definitely some stuff happening here. There's definitely some stuff going on with these Niners that is very much negative for them. But I would definitely caution against assuming that this is the end of the line for them. Remember, this is the all-in year. This is the final year this core can realistically expect to contend for a Super Bowl, I believe. I think that after this year, you're going to see a guy like Trent Williams retire. Kittle will probably be in a different phase in his career. Like, you look at Travis Kelce this year. He doesn't look like he has his athleticism. He doesn't look like he has his speed. He kind of looks shot out there. Kittle is coming up on that phase in his career. And you're already starting to see it with him missing games. And I don't think he is what he was even last year, but it's going to start to settle in. Same with a guy like Debo, McCaffrey. I mean, we're already seeing these guys missing games, right? When they come back, they're not going to be what they were before. They're not going to be all pro level players anymore. So, excuse me. Still pushing past it, guys. But this is the last dance, I think. By and large, obviously there are some other good younger players on this Niners team. Bosa, Purdy's going to be there for a while if they want him. Guys like Ayuk. I know Ayuk's played really bad so far this year, by the way, but he'll come around. Jawan Jennings had a great game yesterday. If the Niners get a few more games into the season and they don't like the way things are going, they're probably going to make a big trade. They're probably going to go all in even further. I don't think they're going to just shrug their shoulders if this season's off to a bad start. This is the year where they need to really win it all. If they don't win the Super Bowl this year, they're looking at this era of Niners football ultimately being a failure because how much longer can you keep this up? It's not just salary cap stuff. It's these players are not going to be elite that much longer. And these guys are not replaceable. Yeah, Shanahan will probably do a better job than most at replacing them, but McCaffrey might be the best running back in the league. Kittle's been the best tight end in the league. I don't know if he is now, but he's been. Like you're not going to just replace these guys by snapping your fingers. You're going to replace them with much lesser players, and there is going to be an impact felt there. So the thing with the Niners is even if they continue to kind of struggle and they continue to lose, I think they're just going to make a big trade. But we all know they're getting their players back anyway, so they should right the ship just by nature of the fact that Debo will be back, McCaffrey will be back. Now there certainly exists the possibility that they're already in a deep hole by the time those guys get back. But something tells me that John Lynch is not going to just write off the year as a lost season unless Purdy gets hurt. If Purdy gets hurt, then that might be a circumstance where they just go, well, we got really, really unlucky, but we don't need to double down on a season where things are already, there's a lot of signs out there that this is just a season to wave the white flag, and it sucks and it's awful, but maybe they have to do it. But don't count out the Niners. I think they're going to be back in this at some point. I think they're going to fight their way back into this. And even though we got the 2-game lead on them right now, even though they've got the divisional loss and a couple conference losses, I'm imagining right now that this division is going to come down to whether or not we can fight off the Niners over the next 14 games, because their best football is certainly ahead of them. Remember, a part of the problem they've had so far is that Ayuk has been bad. You know that's not going to hold. Ayuk is bad because he wasn't working out with the team and he wasn't practicing with Purdy during the offseason because he wanted his money. So eventually that's going to get better. He's probably out of shape. You're seeing kind of the same thing with CeeDee Lamb right now, where he's not himself. So that's a big thing that's going to help. I say what you will, but if Ayuk was playing like himself, that Niners team might be 3-0 right now because the margins have been pretty thin in their 2 losses. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, but let me know what you think about the division. Let me know what you think about these Cardinals, Rams, Niners. Who do you think is real? Who do you think is fake? Who do you think is going to fight back? Who do you think is just going to keep circling the drain? It's interesting, right? I wasn't expecting the division to be this soft so far, but there's a lot of football left, and it's hard for me to believe that this is going to be the case for the whole year. All right, more videos coming. Go Hawks. And hey, it's good to be on top, even if it only lasts for a little while.